Welcome back to the Self Trust Solution Podcast. Today's guest is someone whose story embodies exactly what we mean when we talk about self trust fueled by, or success rather, fueled by self trust. Dr. Lakila Bowden is the chief operating officer at iSee Technologies, a Black, female, and disabled owned workplace wellness company that she founded with her sister, Camille. Under her leadership, iSee Technologies has become a seven-figure business, something fewer than 2% of women-owned companies ever reach. And before that, Lakila spent years leading multi-state teams for Fortune 500 companies. But it was during one deeply personal year, losing her mother while preparing to welcome her son, that she learned to pause, listen, and lead differently. Today, we're talking about what it takes to redefine achievement, build a business that honors rest as strategy, and trust yourself enough to walk away from the life that looks perfect on paper in order to build one that actually fits. Welcome, Lakila.
Thank you, Don, for having me. I'm so excited to be here and I love the work that you're doing.
Wow, we're just so honored to have you here. Your story is so important in the work that you do. Tell us what life look and feel like when you were operating in that high achievement, high pressure corporate world.
So I started out in corporate really from undergrad. My first internship, this is after my sophomore year in college, was with General Electric in their financial management training program. And then after graduating, I was recruited into that program full time as a financial analyst. So my exposure to the corporate world started very early.
Mm.
And this was at the time, this was like the premier program. All other companies kind of patterned after GE. GE was kind of known for creating these very rigid leaders and having this very either number one or number two in every industry. That was kind of the mindset, and finance was the backbone of that. So that's where I started out. That was like my training ground. And a couple of years into it, I knew this was not a space for me. So I would say to the kind of the central theme of your show, I learned to trust myself very, very early. I
Mm.
was very good at what I did, but I knew that I wasn't in an environment that was conducive to how I wanted to feel every day.
Yeah.
So took steps to put myself in position to be recruited to another role completely outside of finance and operation. And my career kind of progressed from there. So having said that, I think that making that big move early really helped me learn to trust myself. And although I was continuing to move up the ladder, continue to have more responsibility, I never really defined myself by what I did. So
Mhm.
I don't think that I felt the same pressure that a lot of people, especially women, feel in corporate environments, just because I knew it was a thing that I do, but not who I am. I just also happen to be very good at it.
What was the space between? I love that you just said that, and I want to get back to that because often
Mhm.
we can be really good at things. It doesn't mean we have to love it or make it our thing, right?
Precisely.
We get to choose. I think it's beautiful that we're good at lots of things, but choosing what we want to do is, is really where our power is, right? And
That
we're
part.
going to shine even brighter. If we can be good at what we don't love, how amazing can we be at what we do?
You make a very good point. Exactly. Exactly. That was the thing.
But what was the space of time between recognizing that this is not for you and finding what was?
So after leaving finance, I entered into operations and I actually enjoyed that. It was more people oriented. I became a leader pretty quickly, leading large teams of people that they were twice my age at the time. I was like 24, but I was again very good at it. I've always been very good at connecting with people, and I had this operations mindset, just very good mentality around it. One of the things that helped me to be successful was that I was able to connect to people in a very real way. My team really enjoyed working with me, and I tried to make people feel seen regardless of whatever their roles were. But I was always open to change, and I continued to get recruited away from one opportunity to the next, and I would make more money and then do something that was even bigger role. Eventually, I started working in healthcare. And towards the end of my career, I was over 15 years, and I was retired as a VP of operations in healthcare. Prior to that last role, I kind of knew my time in corporate was coming to an end, and that I had all this talent and all of this experience that I wanted to take to do something that I was building, not just for myself, but put to create generational wealth. And I didn't feel like I could do that in the confines of a corporate role. Making great money, all the titles and all those things, but I knew that I could have greater impact if I were at the helm in terms of controlling the direction of my career and where I was spending my time and energy.
Yeah. So you've talked about the year that changed everything with
Mhm.
losing your mother and preparing to welcome your son. How did
Yes.
that season play into this and shift your perspective?
Oh, greatly, greatly. So there was a period of I retired from corporate in 2019, and at the same time, I founded my company, iSee Technologies. And there was a learning curve, right? Because I'd been trained in kind of this corporate mindset, used to the every 2-week paycheck, that kind of thing. And although I was confident in my abilities, there was still a learning curve between the world of an entrepreneur and, it being employed by a company. So I put a lot of time and energy into ramping up that learning curve and extending myself a ton of grace. I didn't beat myself up for what I didn't know. I just, learned to figure it out, build my network, that kind of thing. So a lot of my energy went into that. So fast forward a couple of years later, and my mother had been diagnosed with cancer, and I was her primary caretaker. So I was earlier in her diagnosis. I had been married for maybe a year, so I was a new wife, navigated taking care of my mom, and really, so many things we don't realize they're preparing us for things. So to take a step back, prior to me and my husband, I did not want children. I was like, I'm cool being rich auntie. Doing my thing, my career, I'm traveling, all that. And then I meet my husband, and he takes away every reason that I didn't want to be a mom because he's an amazing partner, an amazing husband. And I knew he would be a great partner to me in parenthood, not just in our marriage. And then my mom gets sick. And now I'm taking care of my mom. And this is the first time that I had to really take care of someone other than me. And it showed me I could I could do it. Like, I was, again, very good at it, and I found myself reflecting her because she was very good at, taking care of people. So, she started to turn the curve in her diagnosis, and then COVID hits, and she takes a turn. And, I find out early 2021, I find out I'm pregnant, and now my mom has a month later, she's placed on hospice. So I knew that she probably wouldn't live to see my son's arrival. And so I found myself in a position where I am the conduit between the two of them. I'm helping to usher my mother into her next phase. And then my son, I'm ushering him earthside, and it's happening between me because I'm literally taking care of the both of them. So it was an I chose to look at it as a divine assignment,
Mm.
and I take a lot of pride in how I care for my mother, how I care for my son, and also how I care for myself during that period of time.
Yeah, because you also were moving into a new level, a new,
Yes,
yeah, a new space of motherhood and being like the legacy of your mom who is
absolutely,
here. Yeah.
absolutely.
What a beautiful way to see it as a divine assignment. And I think what we've heard from you, and you tell me throughout this, is your ability to shift perspectives.
Mhm.
And I don't even know if it's a shift, honestly. I just hear your perspective is different than what I could hear what other people can easily take this as and see it in different ways. And your the power of your perspective to see it as a divine assignment, as an opportunity, as a chance
Absolutely,
is
absolutely.
is really powerful. Where do you think that comes from?
So, for me, I think that comes from I think it comes from the wisdom that has been instilled in me through the women in my life, my grandmothers. one of my grandmothers is actually still living. I had them both in my life for a very long time, but one of them is still living. She's going to be 100 years old in December of 2025. And just being around that level of wisdom, you learn to trust a lot. They talk to me a lot. My mother also, I watched her make intuitive decisions around motherhood that I feel myself making, even though I don't have her physically here to have her guidance. So I think that's where a lot of that is deeply rooted for me.
Mm.
And it's really a superpower. It's really a superpower. And it's why I chose to really document how that part of my life played a role in my career success and my ability to make great career decisions, professional decisions in its relation to my personal decisions. Then I wrote about it in my book, The Sho Nuff Principle. I literally opened the book talking about that period of time and how it led to what I call the cheat codes of of how we lead our lives in a way that allows us to prioritize self-care, or allows us to prioritize self-celebration and self-promotion, even when it doesn't feel like when life is lifing, when it doesn't feel like that's the natural intuitive thing to do.
Right. It doesn't feel like the responsible thing to do is what I often talk with people. It's like, it
Mhm,
seems not responsible to go down the self-care route, but it's so
mhm,
much more powerful. It's so much more effective. And what I hear from you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or right, or what you think about this, but I hear the how you have life prioritized. Like,
mhm.
you're amazing at a lot of things. And something you're not at first, because you're not gonna be, right? We don't know how to entrepreneur until we're an entrepreneur. We don't know how to build a business until we do it. But for you, it's not a defining piece of who you are. So it becomes this ability to stretch and learn and grow into it if that works for you, if that's what you decide you want, or to leave it aside if you don't.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've made many pivots in my life and career. I mean, everything from like pivoting from corporate to entrepreneurship, pivoting from not wanting to be a mom to loving motherhood.
Mhm.
And all of it has taught me that there's something to learn, there's something to grow from in all of these different spaces. I don't believe in losses, I believe in lessons. So even when things don't work out the way that I intended, I can always look back and connect the dots and say, "But here's what I gained from it. Here's an opportunity that I didn't see coming that, that I'm so glad that I have I've had the experience." And I think it's just that openness and receptiveness that allows me to be able to flourish when I do show up. And having said that, I expect the best. That is, I expect things to turn out and work out in my favor without me having to know what the outcome will be.
Yeah. We don't have to strangle it there. No. What is the term, manhandle or whatever? We don't.
Or- right, exactly.
But again, we're
Exactly.
sort of taught that that's the more responsible thing to do, or
Yeah.
I we get confused in that somehow. And your perspective on just life, honestly, and how you move through it, and the permission you give yourself, and the strength that you hold within yourself, and that you acknowledge it,
Yes.
is like that's my mission in this world for everyone to do, really, because it is a superpower, but it's not one that's just innate. It's one that you can develop. We all have
Absolutely.
that ability.
Absolutely.
All these we're heroes at this, guys.
I always say, as a speaker, when I'm in front of an audience, especially an audience of women, I always say that giving yourself permission is the superpower that lifts the invisible loads in our lives.
Totally. And what we hear sometimes, and let's make it clear for everyone listening, we hear permission as permissiveness.
Mhm.
And I want to make it clear it's not the same thing at all.
That's a very important distinction. It is one that I was very intentional in the book about making. This is not about asking for someone else's permission. I am very much in that regard. I'm very much forgiveness over permission. I'm gonna do it, and then we'll work it out later. But
Yeah.
what we're talking about is internal permission. When
Yeah.
we give ourselves permission, our power is in our own permission. And then what starts to happen is that we teach other people how to treat us based on how we treat ourselves. So when you've given yourself permission, other people are gonna get on board. But
Yeah.
when you show up with that energy of I'm already I've already established that this is something that I'm going to do or a way that I'm going to show up. That just becomes the external expectation as well. And I think that is a very important nuance to understand.
There's that piece, that external piece of, waiting for other people's permission that we are absolutely saying, don't do that. You have to do that. Give
Yeah.
yourself, that's where your power lies. But there's that misconception that by giving ourselves permission, by being kind to ourselves, by being self care focused, that we will get into permissiveness, meaning that we'll, let our goals go by the wayside,
Oh,
that we will, just sit around and eat bonbons on the sofa all day. And one, I always say, is that who you are? Is that what you do normally? Because if not, why would that be what you are
don't even worry about it.
doing?
Don't even worry about it.
But, permission is different than permissiveness in the way, which, by the way, sometimes we want to be permissive with ourselves. Like, just do it.
Mhm.
Not a problem either. You're not going to just sit on the sofa and eat bonbons all day normally. You're right. But permission speaking, I like to say, not just for your now desire for comfort, permission is speaking for your greater desire for growth as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I want to see both. We're holding both, and neither are wrong. They're both beautiful. But permission is really speaking for our entire self, not just it'd be easier not to do this amazing thing that I know I can do.
Absolutely, absolutely. What one of the so I named the book the Sho Nuff Principle, and that was intentional.
Yeah.
The Sho Nuff Principle says that what you tell yourself about yourself will show enough become a part of your reality.
Yeah.
And the beauty is that we can curate the realities that we want with our internal dialogue. And there's beauty in the balance of it.
Mhm.
So yes, there's setting expectations for yourself. Yes, there's a time to be driven and intensely focused, but the balance in what I think that you're describing that we don't give ourselves permission to do is to rest. There's our greatest creativity, the greatest our greatest ideas sometimes lie in our ability just to rest, to sit still, to ground our feet, to daydream, and to nap. I'm a huge nap proponent. So there are times when yes, we need to be, I run a company. There are times when I'm intensely focused on getting something done, but I always find that I show up better, that I attract more of the opportunities, people, and resources that I need when I've given myself the space to also take pause.
Yeah. We have to open up to it. And when we're
Yes.
so busy, like hustling and running and putting our head to the, down and putting our nose to the grindstone, all those different
Yeah.
terminologies, we end up like literally deflecting opportunities in a way that
Right. Exactly.
up. We can't recognize them because we're like focused on this one way and this one thing that we're doing. But
Right. And
that
and
your book
and
sounds amazing. I wrote a short book, a guide called Master Your Inner Dialogue, very like how to
Mhm.
relate to your inner self. Because I don't know about you, but I am a big adversary now. I'm against all the talk about self sabotage in the ways of defining our different parts of ourselves as like all these different names, all these different saboteurs, because to me, that creates more fracturing of our internal self. And what I want you to do is not change your thoughts all the time or say pretty things that you don't believe, but I
Mhm.
want you to create a united front. Just change your relationship with those thoughts.
Mhm.
'Cause
Absolutely.
we're facing a lot of challenges in the world, always, especially for those of us reaching for big things and, reaching for different heights and impacting the world. We need a united front in order
I
to
agree.
come
I
up.
agree. I tell audiences that I speak to all the time that make the voice in your head the voice of the kindest person you know. Like it's okay. And that includes holding yourself accountable. You can be kind and hold yourself accountable. You can be
Yeah.
kind and say, I don't like the way we did that. Let's do that better next time. But also give yourself your props. Pop your
Yeah.
collar, pat yourself on the back. Because that's the part we
Honesty.
skip. Yes.
Honesty about all of it.
All of it. Right.
All of it.
Right.
We're gonna talk a minute about how you teach women to prioritize rest and radical self-celebration. It's also a piece of what I teach too, because it's people think it's fluff, but it's strategic. It's so
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
if this byproduct of that is you being nicer to yourself, win, like not
That's great.
right. But when We have to be honest with ourselves, and we can think that celebrating and, patting ourselves on the back is somehow ego driven. But I will tell you, or the antithesis of humility. But what I've learned through all of this work is true humility is just honesty. And that means honesty about our challenges and our flaws, but also honesty about our strengths. And
Absolutely.
that when we're honest and we don't bring drama to the table, we bring true interest in ourselves, like wanting to learn from ourselves. We become our greatest teacher, is my favorite way to think of it. When we do that, then our flaws are just like, hey, is this a flaw that I want to work on? Or am I just okay with hiring it out? Or like getting someone else leaning on their strength in this area?
Mhm.
And then the strengths I can look at clearly and say, it's not, do I want to develop this? Do I want to help others with it? Or do I want to teach it to others to help them
Mhm.
grow? It just becomes a more powerful place. It's so much more important than just being kind to yourself, which is
I
amazing.
I completely agree. I frame what some may see as selfishness as dynamically selfless.
Mm,
And when we're prioritizing ourselves, and when we're putting ourselves first, when we're showing up as the best version of ourselves and keeping ourselves full, other people benefit. Everyone and everything else benefits, right? So it's super important. And I want to touch on a point that you made earlier about humility. We have been we're far on the opposite end of the spectrum from a humility standpoint, especially as women. Like we're taught to be overly humble. So I'm very intentional about telling women to brag more in a genuine and authentic way. So, the way that I'm going to brag might not be the way that you brag, but you talk about your wins, big, small, celebrate them. And when we brag in a genuine and authentic way, our wins increase in frequency and magnitude.
right.
So, and if a part of your jam is having impact, you're going to have even more impact in the spaces that you show up in. So, yes, talk about it. It's not, it's not coming from a place of being conceited or try to put anyone else down to big yourself up.
And it gives other people sometimes permission to see their own strengths. I beg people, in fact, there's an episode in season 2 of the Self Trust Solution podcast that airs on November 19th of 2025, where I'm literally begging you to be impressed with yourself.
I love that. Be impressed with yourself. Yes.
So it encourages people. It's part of the Master Inner Dialogue where I invite you to create an I'm so impressed list that you just add to all the time. From
Look,
I'm so impressed that I didn't lose my temper in the grocery store line to I'm so impressed that I led that keynote in front of 2,000 people.
all of it counts. All of it counts. Similarly, I call it the brag bag. Put it in your brag bag, and there's space for all of it in there. So I love that. I love being impressed with yourself. That's phenomenal.
Good. So tell me when you are teaching women to prioritize rest and radical self celebration, what does that look like in practice for you?
So for me, it literally looks like taking moments to pause. So I've built a business, and I'll say that's one of the biggest differences between my world in corporate and my world as an entrepreneur. In corporate, I didn't necessarily control the pace, right, of the things that I had to do or that I was responsible for. In this world, I'm intentional about the pace. I operate in flow. I have no desire to be booked and busy. I don't. If my calendar starts looking too crazy and too back to back, I can feel it and I will
Mhm.
quickly move something, reschedule something. Everything's not the end of the world. And because I've set the intention and I've uh, created a model that is designed around that, I'm able to stay true to it. Is it always easy? Not necessarily, but it happens more often than not because I've been intentional about it. So for me, that in business, it looks like versus force, and in my personal life, that looks the same way. Also, I love to sit and just give myself legit quiet time. I love grounding. I love putting my feet in the grass. I'll have moments where I'm like, I need to go outside and just stand in the sun. So I literally recharge myself that way. And these aren't things that have to take all day.
Yeah.
One of the things that I encourage when I'm working with women, I encourage them to do is create a 5-5-5 rewards list. And what that is is if this is something you do in advance and you think about things that make you feel rewarded that take 5 minutes. For me, that might be stepping outside and just getting some sunlight, but it makes me feel really good. And if there's an amplifier behind that, right? And how I feel for the next 5 hours. Speaking of 5 hours, the next thing on that list are things that make you feel rewarded you can do in 5 hours. So that might be going to a spa and, getting a massage or whatever that looks like. And then there are things that you may do over 5 days. That could be a vacation, a growth trip, whatever that looks like. But when you have that list in advance, when life gets to going, and you have something that you want to reward yourself over, because we want to get consistent about building up the muscle and the repetition of rewarding ourselves and acknowledging our accomplishments. You can say, okay, I only have 5 minutes. This is one thing from my 5 rewards list I can do in 5 minutes, or I can do this in 5 hours, or I can do this in 5 days. So we don't skip it, because I can't tell you how many women, when I ask that question, what makes you feel rewarded? They don't know in the moment, or they can't think of it, or they haven't done anything in so long. They're not really sure. Take the time, do this in advance so that you don't have this. And I can just go right to whatever your phone, your list. If you're still a paper and pen, write it down person, put it somewhere where you can see it.
Yeah.
You're more likely to reference that list when you have it handy, right? And actually do it.
I love it. And it's something that you can add to because we change and we evolve. And what we
Yes.
find nourishing, 10 years ago is probably not the same thing we find nourishing now, or may not be, or has evolved and deepened or met a different level. Yeah.
Depends on the season of life that you're in. In my motherhood season, so I didn't become a mom until I was 40. I literally had my son 3 months after I turned 40. What I value now is peace and quiet. I'll go check into a hotel real quick and have a mommy staycay. And I make it 2 days because one day is not enough. The first day, I'm just really, my nervous system is realizing, oh, we're alone and it's quiet. The second day is where I'm like really, digging into the thing. But in my 20s, early 30s, I wanted to run around. I wanted to be, in the mix and around people. So you're right. What that looks like, the things that recharge us, they look different depending on the season of life that we're in and what we have going on at the moment. So you're right. It can grow, it can expand and share it. I love sharing. I've had so many moms come back to me and say, I do mommy staycays now. Like, I just did one, and I love that. I love that.
Yeah. It's so important. And I love that you talk about silence because that was a big change for me. It was a big shift from moving from hustle, bustle, overworking, underliving is what I called it. And
Mhm.
just not feeling connected to myself. And silence really was the impetus to like really creating more trust and more access to my inner wisdom,
Mhm.
my intuition. And why I bring that up is because often we don't. What does nourish me? What does recharge me? And if you haven't asked it in a while, you might be leaning on things that used to, but don't really fit anymore. And if we
Right.
take that as, oh, that didn't work for me, and then we just kind of move on or go back to what's not working for you, it's unfair. And so I think
Mhm.
it's so important to tune in and really think about it. Brainstorm. Don't make it work. Don't make it more pressure. But like, let's just brainstorm some things that might be amazing for 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days. That would, and let me experiment and try them out. How fun would that be?
That part. You'll find something. I mean, there are things that I'm like, I never thought I would enjoy that. I didn't used to hike before
Yep.
and started hiking and fell in love with it. Just being amongst the trees and not like I was a runner, so I run and that kind of thing. And you miss so much. When you're hiking, you're just walking, and I'd make sure that I look up, look at the trees, look at the sky, look at the plants around me, and I get so much positive ion exchange from that. And that's
Mhm.
something that, once upon a time I never would have thought about. Like,
Yeah.
it might have felt too slow for me. But no, so you discover new things.
It's so good because we realized I am a big proponent of being out in nature and I do
Mhm.
walks twice a day in this gorgeous park that I'm so blessed to be close to. And you can't help but feel the sense of, well, humility for one,
Right.
but just that you're part of something amazing.
Absolutely.
You're surrounded by life, even when things feel hard and heavy.
Mhm.
When you see that, it's just, that this too will pass. You know that there's something bigger than you. You know how like these trees have been here for hundreds of years. That kind of sense, right? Of your place in the world. And
Absolutely.
it's so powerful. We have so much that we can draw from in that way. So tell me what feels different now. Now, I mean, mother, business,
Mhm.
how, and really leaning on seeing how your self trust has evolved and your perspective and what you prioritize. Tell me what feels different now in how you lead your team, make decisions, or define success.
What feels different now is that my intuitive capabilities are off the charts. And I was intentional about strengthening my intuition. Our intuition is like the muscle, essentially. And the more that you use it, the more that you lean into it, the stronger and more accurate it becomes. But the less that we use it, right? Like just like it will atrophy on you, it will become weaker. And I think, earlier in my career when I was surrounded in this corporate environment, although I trusted myself, there was still a lot of there were a lot of other influences, and you're figuring things out, and that's okay too. That's a part of the process. You're growing, you're learning, you're figuring things out. As I've entered this stage and phase of my life, I got very intentional about my intuition when I was able to go back and connect the dots and say, when I trusted myself in this instance, it worked out in these really phenomenal ways. And when I heard myself but didn't listen to myself, it didn't work out so great, right? So let me lean in more into my intuition. And I think in this stage, and I'm excited about where this goes from here. And now that I've seen the fruits of my labor in terms of pouring into and trusting my intuition and strengthening those capabilities, um, I lean into it heavily as a leader in my company and who I clients that I interact with or say no to. No is a complete sentence and I don't feel bad about it, or an opportunity that doesn't pan out. I can trust that something bigger, something greater, something more aligned is coming down the pike. And it also plays in my personal life. And I would say, especially in motherhood, being able to trust my intuitive capabilities has been clutch because I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And my son is 4. That makes me a 4-year-old mom. That makes my husband a 4-year-old dad. And we are all growing and learning at this together. A part of what I think makes my husband and I great parents is that we understand that and we lean into it and we talk to our son about it. He's 4 and we let him know mommy and daddy don't always have the right answer. We are figuring this out, but we are doing what we trust is best and we're okay with changing and pivoting. And we literally talk to him like that, and he's receptive to it. He demonstrates understanding in that as well. So, my own mother is not here so for me to go to and be like, "Mom, what did I how did you handle this when I was little and this happened?" Um, but I do tap into her though. I That's a part of the sitting and being quiet and getting downloads. And there are things that I can only explain are downloads that are coming from her because I have no experience with this thing and I just know what to do. There are moments where I'm like, wow, I'm really like giving myself my props. Like I really just knew what to do in that moment. And when it comes to your child, feeling that way makes all the difference in the world, in terms of how I'm showing up for him.
Well, and I think you've taught your 4-year-old something that many adults we don't learn until later or ever. And so it's a great invitation to see that we're not supposed to know everything. And so much suffering and struggle comes from thinking we
Mm,
are. That's
mhm.
when we start to hide. It's when we start to shut down. It's when we start to limit ourselves because we're supposed to know it. So let me like be more quiet in this. And what you talked about is like, let's just be okay with not knowing everything and figuring it out along the way.
Yeah, let's see where this adventure leads us.
Right.
Let's follow the path.
Yeah, and trust comes in that space of, you know what? Sometimes it's not going to work out. Sometimes I'm going to make
Yep.
the best decision in the world and it's not going to work out. I'm going to make the worst decision in the world and it is going to work out.
Right.
And I'm just going to trust that whatever the result is, I'm going to use it to make the very next best decision based on what I know, what I'm going through, what my walk of life is right now. And it's such Oh, it's such a lighter place to be. As someone who used to
Absolutely.
always think that I needed to know everything and put all that pressure on myself, it's like this heavy, heavy weight. And I see it in my clients too. And
Mm.
actually and friends and family sometimes as well. And it's the gift I think you can give yourself is just be okay with not having to know everything.
Absolutely, and that can be very difficult for people who are, achievement oriented, type
Yeah.
A. I believe that burnout is 100% preventable.
Oh yeah.
And but it requires exactly what you're describing. It requires us to know that you're not going to get all the answers right when you have complete information, and sometimes you're going to have completely incomplete information, and you're going to knock it out of the park. And and it's being okay even when it's uncomfortable. It's noticing. One thing I'm very, astute at is noticing, "Ooh, I'm uncomfortable. Let me lean in a little bit more. There's a reason I'm uncomfortable." And most of the times we're like, "Oh, it's uncomfortable. Let me get away from it. Let me stop. Let me." Sometimes we stop ourselves right before the breakthrough because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Or because we're afraid we're gonna get it wrong, or because it's, uncertain. Well, guess what?
Mhm.
Everything's uncertain.
Everything is uncertain,
And
actually.
everything you haven't done before is uncomfortable. Even if it's the most amazing thing. It's why if you have always eaten chips and you want to start eating vegetables all the time, that's gonna be pretty uncomfortable. It doesn't make
Right.
it bad. Discomfort isn't misalignment. It's just new. Discomfort equals new. And the greater we can get at our discomfort tolerance and move worthy discomfort into action, it moves into the comfort zone not long after often. And the things that don't,
Precisely.
you can reevaluate.
You're right.
But
Exactly,
honestly, if you
exactly.
get really good at being uncomfortable, you are unstoppable.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. And not assigning, our worth or our value to, I should know all these things and I should have all this down. Like it's all good. You don't our zone of genius doesn't need to reflect perfection, right? And the more that we lean into that perspective, the more time we can really spend being good in our zones of genius.
So true. We're all on this journey of learning and experiencing different ways of life, and we're all going to hit hills and we're all going to hit valleys. And if we have our own back through it all, I mean, it ends up being much more beautiful, much more enjoyable, and you're going to achieve a lot more.
Agree. Agreed. It's incredible when we do
What
that.
do you wish more high achieving women understood about trusting themselves in business specifically?
Um, what I wish we understood was that we already have the answers inside of us.
Mm.
Well, a lot of times we're seeking it. We talked about permission and that being an internal thing, but a lot of times we're seeking the answers outside of us. Now, that doesn't mean, that you don't need mentors. Of course you do. That's a part of the answer that's in you.
Mm.
One thing that I'm very consistent with is saying, okay, I'm entering a new space or I'm doing something new. Like, for instance, making my business bankable. So being able to qualify and get funding for the business wasn't in the beginning wasn't something I had a lot of experience with. So I went to other people who did and they helped me understand and here's some tools, here's some resources so you can go get those things that you need. But you don't have to have while you don't have to have all the answers inside, you do have to trust yourself um, and that, you can go out and build what I call your squad. These are the people that are solution oriented and powerfully positive, and these are who you want to kind of make your brain trust. But you can trust yourself and have that internal knowing that I have everything that I need to get all the things the resources, the people that I need, around me to be
Yeah.
successful in business.
Just start internally. That's
Yeah.
amazing. There's a lot of great experts out there, but there are a million of them, and they all say some the same thing, some different things. They're brilliant. And but I always say we have to check in first. The most brilliant
Mhm.
advice I ever got was, and it was something like about lessons, but I've been able to apply it to everything. Instead of going out to seek what you need, tune in to see what you have already and
There
where
you
are
go.
gaps. And
Yeah,
then go seek the people that help you fill those gaps.
precisely. That is such sage advice. That is such sage advice. And it's a part of why I wrote the Show Nuff Principle to give people these
Mm.
very simple 7 cheat codes that essentially are always leading you back to yourself, to tap into your internal wisdom. And like you said, and then you will fill in the gaps. But when you are approaching it from a space of self-trust, right? Where your self-care is prioritized, where your self-celebration is prioritized, you can show up as the most well cared for and well celebrated version of yourself as you're navigating those things.
Yes. Because the difference is when we just go out there looking for what we need without tuning in first, is that's where overwhelm comes in. That's
Oh
where
my gosh.
confusion comes in. It just gets, and then oftentimes it leads to people giving up or believing that's not for them, that they can't have what they want.
Mhm.
You don't
For
want that for
sure.
you. Right.
Right. For sure. For sure.
And so if you could speak to the version of yourself who is still kind of proving her worth in those Fortune 500 halls, what would you tell her now?
I would high five her and I would tell her, "You're doing a great job. You are doing a phenomenal job." I don't know that I always knew that, um, but I moved like I did, and I would just reassure and reaffirm. I mean, that was a part of my journey. I wouldn't change it because there was so much that I learned, so many people I met along the way, so many experiences that I had that now in a stage of my life where I didn't necessarily even see coming, I'm applying. But yeah, I would just go back and affirm her. I would be like, "Lakila, you are killing it."
I love that because look, it goes to prove that we learn both what we like and what we don't like, what we want to replicate, what we don't, what mirrors, what doesn't, right? Through the doing. We learn very little from not doing anything.
Right, right,
And so we don't have to regret or feel guilty about decisions or experiences we have if we take the lesson, if we are learning from ourselves from it and using
right.
that to help us paint the path forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. I talk about this all the time. And I encourage women to spend very little time beating yourself up over anything. Over anything. It can be a legit mistake. Learn the lesson and move forward. But the time that we spend ruminating, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, it isn't there's no real value add in it.
No,
There's no real value add. Yeah.
you're arguing with reality. It's done.
It's already done. So go forward and be great.
Exactly. So you actually offer for, I mentioned guilt, and I think so many of us, especially women, can get into spaces of feeling guilty. And,
For sure.
I always like to say, usually I feel guilt about the result of a decision, and then we make ourselves wrong for making a decision. But the decision it doesn't necessarily. Sometimes you can say the decision was wrong, but it's a little unfair to judge yourself for the decision just because the result. If the result went well, you probably wouldn't judge that decision.
Right. Like I did great.
But when you talk about you have this guilt detox, tell us a little bit about that.
So I wanted to create something that was a very practical tool for the number one thing response that I was hearing from women when I talked to them about why they didn't prioritize their self-care, why they felt uncomfortable celebrating themselves. And it was guilty. That literal word came up. And this is whether I was talking to attorneys, women in corporate, event planners, lactation consultants. I
Wow.
interviewed just a cadre of women about their self-care, and most of them, it was just something that wasn't happening, or they had so many other I put my family first and my job, my career first, and it was guilty. That was the number word that one word that kept coming up. So I said, "You know what? Women need a guilt detox." So I created something, a very easy assessment because we love an assessment. We love a let me see where I stand. Give me a barometer. That's very simple. And, I infused some humor into it as well to see where do you stand on this scale of giving yourself permission or not because of guilt. And the number I've had now, I have so many data points around this. Most women fall into that lower quadrant of the scale. And I set them up to say, don't look at this. This is not something to judge yourself by. This is just to see where you stand. And then I give them tools to easily and accessibly start to to mend that, to give themselves the permission. Like, okay, here's where you are right now. Here are a couple things you can do to prioritize your self-care and start building up that, ramping up there. So it's a fun assessment and it gives you great information. I think it's eye opening when you see it like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that these are the ways that my own is keeping me from caring for showing up as the best version of myself in
Yeah.
terms of
We're going
self-care.
to have that linked in the show notes. Definitely go and grab that because, and please keep in mind, as Tequila said, it is not a grade. It's not like, here you are.
No,
This is how you have to live. It's actually just an awareness tool. And then she's going to give you some great ways to mend for yourself so that you can
absolutely.
detox from guilt and maybe even move into impressed. If that's a huge jump for you, I'm sure there's going to be some inches along the way, but I'm still going to
Absolutely.
invite you to be impressed with yourself.
I love that.
Lakila, thank you for sharing your story and for reminding us that self trust isn't slowing down, it's actually aligning up. And if you have a self trust story to share, I'd love to hear it. And if you're ready to create yours, I'd love to help you claim it. So visit theselftrustcoach.com or check the show notes for details. And don't forget to grab your guilt detox at lakilabowden.com/guilt-detox. See you next time on the Self Trust Solution.